Hello everybody, it's Pineapple here back with another video. And so yesterday I played in a regional down in Pittsburgh. If you were there, it was 8 rounds. I ended up being X3, the deck ended up being X2, but I wanted to talk about why that was, as well as what I played, because it's a fun experience for me to recall, as well as just to explain my thoughts, my theory, because I think my deck theory was great. I didn't see the matchups I really wanted to for it, unfortunately. But that said, I wanted to talk about what I played, why I played it, etc. theory. You know how it works on this channel. I did play Fiendsmith Lab. I will upfront say that. If that doesn't interest you, oh well, too bad, so sad. So we're going to talk about the list first of all. It's one lady and one lovely. At this point, I've come to the conclusion that drawing multiple copies of lady is just, it leaves you dead. Lovely is obviously the heart and soul of this deck. The deck boils down to lovely control. Get to her as fast as humanly possible, loop a bunch of cards out of your opponent's hands, control the board state, reset your floodgates that win you the game instantly, as well as, of course, Daruma Destructive Karma Cannon. And Lady, of course, is just advantage generation, as well as a free body who happens to be an 8 and a big, beater. As well as just an annoying card to out. So these cards are obviously just, your boss monsters, your cornerstones of the deck, as well as just the very annoying cards to deal with, as well as the fact that Lovely will insulate you from all the bazillion different hand traps you're going to see this format. We are on, of course, 3 copies of the Butler. We want to play as fast as humanly possible, namely on turn 0, as well as the fact that if your opponent responds, you get a free body, which is, of course, 1 body for Closed Moon, which is very, very relevant because it gets you into your Fiendsmith cards, which are a very powerful advantage engine in this deck. Additionally, it is a level 6 Fiend, which means you do get to use it to make Wave King High Caesar, which is relevant and has come up for me. It didn't come up at this tournament specifically, but it does come up occasionally, which is really, really funny. We do have, of course, 3 normal summons. We're playing Ariana. Ariana's great. It's a 4, which means it combines with Engraver to make a light and dark Chaos Angel. Ariana's fantastic. Just an unbelievable card. Every deck needs a normal summon, and this is ours because it's a Rhoda. We're playing, of course, for furniture. We are playing 3 Chandra, 3 Stovey, and the 1 copy of Kuklok. The 1 Kuklok was fine. Fortunately, I didn't play against any Kashtira, so I didn't have it, obviously get immediately banished off of Rise Heart. But I think this is probably the correct ratio at this point if you are playing Fern Lab, is just 3-3-1. You can go, there's an argument for Kuklok, I guess, if you have like an extra deck slot, but personally, I didn't feel like I needed it. Butler was pretty much always better in a hand that wasn't just furniture. As long as I drew a welcome, we were always getting Butler. But yeah, Kuklok's great. But he's not all that. Unfortunately, this tournament, I saw so much Chandra and basically no Stovey, which was really, really annoying because Chandra does not generate a free body. It generates hand advantage, which is just not as good, unfortunately, at the end of the day. But, these are the heart and soul of the deck, and we play so much stuff that is designed specifically around being enabled by the furniture. For spell cards for our lab spells, we're playing Lab. That's about it. Lab put in a lot of work today, actually. I got to reborn a copy of our good friend, what was it, Desiree, and that felt really good because I just immediately re-equipped it with sequence and we were good to go again. That was a very, very funny interaction. But yeah, Lab's great. It's kind of win more, but I honestly felt like I wasn't citing it out. It felt very good when paired with the Fiendsmith cards for even more recursion. For Lab Traps, we're playing 3 copies of Big Welcome and 2 copies of Baby Welcome. I think this is standard ratios at this point. There's Tiny Welcome is fine. It's just, worse copies of Big Welcome. But it's more recursive in a grind. But Big Welcome, lets you retrieve stuff from grave. It lets you do all sorts of abhorrent war crime things. And yeah, these are the heart and soul, namely Big Welcome. This is a custom card. If you're not playing 3 Big Welcome, I think you're trolling, but that said, let's talk about our Fiendsmith package. I debated cutting it down smaller, but I came to the conclusion that these cards are so unbelievably good and Light and Dark Chaos Angel is so unbelievably broken that we had to play the full package. We're on 2 copies of Engraver, 1 copy of Lacrima, 1 Lurie, and 1 copy of Tract. At first, I was debating cutting it down to just a Lacrima and an Engraver, and I kind of came to the conclusion that the other 3 deck slots would not be utilized as well, and also it just happens that discarding Lurie for your furniture and having him immediately reborn himself is so funny that, I had to play it. I do think this is correct in this deck specifically. The Fiend Smith cards just synergize super, super well with the deck. So there's no real loss in terms of like playing more of them. And it's a small enough package that, you should realistically only see one of them. And all 5 of these cards, in Labyrinth specifically, represent full combo because Lurie can be discarded for the furniture. Tracked, obviously, you grab Lurie, immediately discard him. Engraver, tracked, Lurie, full combo. These cards put in so much work today. They baited out so many hand traps to allow like big welcomes to resolve and stuff. So very, very strong. Just the ability to start your plays as well as continue your plays, I felt was extremely valuable. Just the ability to like force your interruptions out of your opponent with these cards, as well as being really recursive bodies, felt amazing. I cannot stress enough that the fact that you just got to bait out hand traps to ensure that your vulnerable big welcomes would resolve felt just so good. It's very, very hard to stress. For normal traps, we're playing the GOAT. It is, of course, 3 copies of Karma Cannon, just the greatest like removal trap ever printed. This card is so comedically, ridiculously, unbelievably good. I cannot stress enough just how many times I've had a Tenpai player pick this card up, read it, and go, but my monsters are unaffected. And I'm like, yeah, please send them to the graveyard. I had a guy put his head in his hands for this card. This card is just, it's so obnoxious. If you're not on Karma Cannon, I think you might be trolling while playing this deck. But that said, we're on 2 copies of GOAT. GOAT didn't really put in any work today, but the theory was just that like it's more good discard fodder for the furniture. Sometimes you can set it off Trap Trick and like call a really important monster. Like in theory, if you discarded it, I would want to call Requiem. That was my main target. But GOAT feels just fine. It is one of the cards of all time. I don't think it's particularly great, but I do think it is good enough, and that's what counts. This was a big one for me that I decided to main. I mained 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground. This was because I expected to see a lot of Fire King and a lot of Snake Eye, as well as a lot of like sort of semi-rogue decks that kind of get cooked by it. Like Mermail Atlantean gets absolutely hosed by this card, and I wanted to be able to get to it fast and quick in the main deck, and I thought it would steal me some games. Unfortunately, I saw 1 copy of Snake Eye, and I never was presented with an opportunity to utilize this card, which felt really bad. Yeah, I only saw 1 deck that was vulnerable to it because I got a bad matchup spread. That happens. Sometimes, your theory falls flat on its face, and the universe says, no, thank you. You're not going to get to utilize this cool tech that you thought you were going to get to. But it is what it is. I still think it was correct to play, even if my perception of the meta was slightly off. We have 2 copies of Rollback. Rollback felt really great. Honestly, I kind of wanted to play the 3rd one, but I know that as soon as I go to 3, I'm going to start seeing multiples of this in my hand, and I'm going to get fried as a result. But Rollback felt really great because even if I drew it without a way to discard it, so many people were on Impulse that you can copy Impulse, and that's good enough. The on-field effect is starting to matter more now that we have more trap cards, normal traps that you can copy in your opponent's grave. So Rollback is, of course, always the GOAT because it makes sure your big welcomes resolve as well. We got 1 copy of Trap Trick. Trap Trick felt really good, just a really dynamic way to get more opportunities to set off of Lady, as well as just representing every normal trap in your deck except bar 1, which was a conscious choice that I made. So yeah, Trap Trick just represents like free advantage and the ability to play faster, as well as more copies of normal traps for you to activate RES with. We have 1 copy of Dominus Impulse. I debated going to 2, but I couldn't get an extra copy, so I, didn't play 2. Despite the fact that it locks you out of light monsters, the fact that you can just set it off Lady feels really, really, really powerful. And if you set it, obviously, then you don't get the drawback. And its searchable warning is just so powerful that I felt that it had to be played. There were even times where I just didn't have like furniture and I didn't have like any Fiendsmith cards that I just was like, yeah, I'm going to Impulse you because I hard drew my 1 of Impulse. So this card put in work. I'm not sure I would cut it or change anything about the ratio, but I might go to 2 just in the event that I want to like be able to set it off Trap Trick just to have more copies of it. But Searchable Warning is in fact a good card, believe it or not. We then have 3 copies of Nib. I'd probably cut this in retrospect. This was mostly in here just because of how well it synergizes with Labyrinth specifically. Putting it back in your hand with Big Welcome felt really good. as well as just it exists to beat like mostly rogue decks that I wasn't prepared for. Like I saw some people on like Gimmick Puppet FDK and stuff, and I know that as long as they don't draw the field spell, this card kind of hoses it. It was here to beat like weird rogue things, as well as like Atlantean and all sorts of garbage. Like I just felt like it was a card that I personally liked enough to keep playing, despite its, you know, not great in the meta. For the extra deck, we're going to talk, we have Requiem, of course. We're going to talk about our Fiendsmith cards first. Requiem's the boy, and he does everything for your Fiendsmith cards. Obviously, we're playing him. We have one copy of Wave King High Caesar. Caesar was really, really good. I liked to make him going first, when I went first, before, so that I would leave an engraver in my graveyard, as well as Lacrima to reborn Requiem, in order to, you know, generate more advantage, because I wanted to have more follow-up, because my goal was never to immediately OTK, generally speaking, although this deck does have that potential. My goal was to sort of draw the game out, and I really wanted the recursion off of engraver much more than I felt the untargetable Desiree was worth. Although I'm certain there were times that I made the wrong call. We have one copy of Necroquip. Necroquip actually feels really good because, again, you can get the draw effect pretty consistently. There's one game, I think I resolved it like 3 times in one game, because my engraver got like Bestialed, and as a result, I like resolved Necroquip on my turn, resolved it on my opponent's turn, and then proceeded to set it with Karma Cannon, flip it up, and then draw on my turn as well. So it put in some work today. I was very happy with this card. We, of course, are playing one copy of Sequence. We got to make Desiree somehow, and this is how we do it. Sequence is great. Untargetable Desiree, good card. Yeah, it's Sequence. You knew this was in here as soon as you saw the other Fiendsmith cards. We have one copy of Desiree. It's Desiree. He's on field negate for 2. Just unbelievable card. Love the boy. He's the boy. He's removal when he goes to the grave. Just fantastic card. One copy of Closed Moon, so we can get into our Fiendsmith stuff off of our furniture, as well as just spare bodies. So, you know, you knew Closed Moon was in here. She's fantastic and unbelievable. And then, moving forward, we have one copy of Chaos Angel. He was the boy, the man, the myth, the legend, because Light and Dark Chaos Angel is an absolute house that some decks just can't out. He's just a big dumbass, and that's good enough sometimes. We then have, of course, one copy of Underworld Goddess. I will say this is my target for a certain card in my side deck. If you are picking up what I am putting down, you should be able to infer what I mean by that. And the reason is simply she's a light fiend, and that's an extra fusion material for Desiree. But Goddess didn't come up today. Again, Karma Cannon generally deals with what I need her to deal with, but just having the option I always feel is just a safety net that I don't ever want to give up. We have one copy of Typhon. Typhon was really great today. I made a really nasty play where I went into Requiem, and then I overlaid for Typhon against Centurion in a way so that he couldn't like Legacia or like utilize Blazar or any of that. And then I had my Fiendsmith follow up for next turn, as well as like a Karma Cannon. It felt really good. Typhon is always great in Labyrinth because, again, your goal is not to win in one turn. It's obviously to, you know, play a longer control game. And Typhon's great for that into really gummy board states once you've sort of started to pick them apart. We have, of course, one copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight it's SP Little Knight, man. I can't stress enough how amazing this card is. Although I do think I have gone into her significantly less as a result of the Fiendsmith cards, but SP still puts in work. This is going to give away what our special tech card is. We're playing Ultimate Slayer, and as a result, we are playing some funny tech cards. The reason why was because I assumed that Fiendsmith, Azamina, and stuff would be everywhere. So we played Entis because we can shuffle back the negate for... what's it called? We can shuffle back the Azamina negate, and then we can pop Sequence and just turn off Desiree and the Fiendsmith cards. We're also on Malong, just because I assumed that some people would be on Centurion, and it did come up for that reason. We're also on Mirror Logic Agitator. I didn't know what to expect. I assumed there might be like someone like playing cash monsters, and as a result, like I could in theory play Agitator. And that was basically it. It was just like, I don't want to be caught with my pants down in a situation where I, you know, would need it and have to send like, you know, Caesar. And as a result, I just played it just because I had the space. But Ultimate Slayer felt really, really good as a piece of targeted hate. And I recommend that you get your copies now, especially Mirror Logic, because Ryzeal is coming, and their entire board gets outed as a result of Ultimate Slayer. So get them now before they are hella expensive. We're on one copy of Muckraker from the Underworld. Muck is great. It brings back just about everything in your graveyard because it's Muckraker. 2 bodies, free reborn. Came up a bunch at this tournament. And the card that cost me my tournament run, Relinquished Anima. I forgot to include this in my deck list like a dumbass. And as a result, I got randomly deck checked in round 7. I was on the bubble. We were going into game 3, and they randomly deck checked us, and they were like, "You forgot to put Anima in your list." And I went, "Oh no!" And so they gave me a game loss, and that ended my tournament run. It was a heartbreaker because it was 10 pi in that round, and I made him go first. I said, "You're going first," and he went, "Yep." And there was a very high chance that I was going to win that set. I feel at least Labyrinth has a very, 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 very strong 10 pi matchup, especially when you get to make them go first. It feels very good. But yeah, I shot myself in the foot and forgot to include Anima. That one's going to keep me up at night. So like I said, the deck was X2 in my opinion. The player was X3 because I'm a goober. But I think the theory was, pretty solid. Anima is a link one that's removal, and also is a link monster that turns SB into more removal. And as a result, I think it's a very strong combo. But again, it did cost me my tournament run because I am a dumbass. But that's beside the point. Let's talk about the side deck. The Bystials, again, I expected a lot of Snake Eye, and the Bystials are really good against Snake Eye because, of course, you can hit the Masquerain out of their graveyard. You can hit the recycling ability on Hollowed because you can hit the target that they want to shuffle back, and as a result, they won't get Hollowed back, and you can deny them the negate, which is really good. The Bystials are just great into that deck specifically, as well as just a lot of rogue decks. They're just good cards, and they're good in Labyrinth specifically because, again, you can bounce them to the hand with Big Welcome and use them again, which is really, really great. We are on some Charmies, my 1 copy of Fulos that I own, and my 3 copies of Perulia. They didn't come up a ton, but again, the theory behind this is they're just good cards. Like a lot of weird decks get hosed by them. Like Memento, for example, is really bad into these cards. They just hit a lot of stuff, and with how wide open the format is, your side has to be equally as wide open in order to hit things that are just generally good, much less tailored specifically to one deck, unless you really think that like you wanted to see a lot of Snake Eye like I did, which is why my main deck was tailored to it, and I got burned. I think maybe as a result. I was not prepped enough for Centurion. We have 3 copies of Ultimate Slayer, as I explained earlier. This card was great. Highly recommend right now because of how popular cards like Fiend Smith and of course the Azmina cards are. Obviously, Untargetable Desiree, it doesn't deal with Desiree, but if they have another fusion like the Azmina fusion that's in the gate, you shuffle back that, pop the sequence, and then you are in business. But yeah, that was basically what this was here for, as well as, shuffling back weird synchro stuff. It just felt like an all-purpose, really strong utility card in a deck that had space to play it, and it's also just one of my favorite cards, so I wanted to play it, and as a result, I did. For trap cards, we're playing Skill Drain. It didn't come up that much today, but it's Skill Drain. It's a really strong going first card, and as a result, I thought it was very, very, very powerful in the assumption that I drew it. We're also on Anti-Spell. Anti-Spell put in a ton of work. I won, I think I won a game or 2 just purely off of Anti-Spell. Anti-Spell was put in work today. I'd say I love this card, but it's so toxic and frustrating. But it is a good card, I will say that. We're on 1 copy of Rivalry. Again, so we have 3 just continuous floodgates for going first. Rivalry did put in work specifically against Centurion at this tournament. I think Rivalry is just good. A lot of decks play a lot of different typings, and they want to play the Fiendsmith cards as like a package, and as a result, you can deny them a lot with Rivalry. I just think Rivalry is a great card right now. For generic normal traps, we're on Deep Barrier and Magic Deflector. Again, Magic Deflector in theory could be Epidemic Eradicator Virus, but I think that Magic Deflector just as a whole, mostly for specifically Fire King Snake Eye, was a better call. And Barrier, as well as Runic, obviously. But Barrier was here because it's Dimensional Barrier, mostly for Tenpai. But I think that the theory behind this deck was correct. I, as a pilot, my rounds 2 and 3, I felt like I got heavily varianced. Greatest hands I've ever seen from a Centurion player, stuff like double Ash, double Bestial, double deck lockdown, Ash, Imperm, like Imperm evenly, Ash, like the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life, as well as drawing 3 copies of Big Welcome didn't help my tournament run, on top of just me being an idiot, you know, shooting myself in the foot. You know, I sabotaged myself, and then, you know, sometimes you play a back row deck and the luck of the draw goes against you. But it is what it is. Again, I wanted to share the theory behind this deck because I do think it's really fun, and I do think it's really good, and I think it's skill testing and matchup testing about how you utilize your Fiendsmith cards as well as your interrupts. And I do think this list was very solid, even if I let it down. I'm disappointed, but you know, it's really lit a fire under me to, you know, one, make more content about Labyrinth, as well as, you know, try to get that top, because I do really want to make it. If you guys did enjoy this list, drop a comment, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.